What's up, fifth grade? So this is me, Miss Sabi. Y'all can just pretend that I'm literally sitting in your living room or wherever you're doing your lesson, teaching you this lesson. So this lesson is about using details to support inferences, and we're going to focus on using this resource here. This is going to be linked in the description along with on Google Classroom. So make sure that you have this pulled up and ready to go. Of course, we're going to start with some shout outs. So today I decided to shout out someone from each homeroom just to make sure I'm showing love to all of fifth grade. So from Emory, we have Giada. So good job, Giada. I see that you're putting in the work. Continue the good work. Morehouse, Anjali, you did a great job of making sure that you included details in your summary. Spellman, Mia Bell, I see you. You put in that work. Keep up the good work. Morgan State, Chloe, you did that, okay? So I just want to make sure you guys are doing what you're supposed to be doing, and if you continue to do what you're supposed to be doing, you will be shouted out in my video lessons. All right, so let's get into the lesson for today. So today's skill, like I said, we're going to work on inferencing. So when you make an inference about a text, you can support it with quotes from that text. So sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out what the inference is, but if you see what the text is saying and what you already know, you can create an inference, but we're going to talk more about that later. So you're due now. I want you to pause the video and on your lined piece of paper, write one sentence making an inference about what has happened in this picture right here. So when we're talking about this picture right here that's on the resource, you're going to write one sentence making an inference about what has happened in the picture. And if you're confused or you're like, what are you talking about, Miss Alving? Just answer this question. Where did the man's steak go and how do you know? Okay. In your sentence, you need to make sure that you include the details that led you to believe whatever your inference is. Go ahead and pause the video. Great. So when you look at this picture, you should see that there's a dog here, sort of sleeping with his tongue out, and there's a bone. And this guy's like, "Where did my steak go?" So when it asks you to make an inference, what you're basically doing is you're using what you read or what you see. So when it comes to a picture, we just see that I just sort of laid out what I saw. So that's my evidence. And then you add what you already know, your background knowledge and prior knowledge, to create the inference. So here I can make the inference that the dog ate the man's steak because I see that the dog has a bone next to him, and I know that dogs eat steak or they eat, meat in general. So that can lead me to believe that the dog ate the man's steak. So the man's like, "Where did my steak go?" So obviously there are some clues here and there. We're going to use our detective clues, but we need to make sure any inference that we do make has to be backed up with evidence. So that's what we're going to focus on in this lesson. I'm going to walk y'all through this text called Jung-ha. That's how it's pronounced, so don't get it twisted. Jung-ha. And we're going to be working through it with the plan of attack, just like normal, but we're going to be trying to make an inference after we read. Okay, so our step number one is previewing the text, right? So I'm going to walk y'all through this one just to show you how I would think through the text, and then I'll have you guys work on one independently. All right, so previewing the text. I see that Jung-ha is the title, and I'm trying to use my context clues to figure out what type of text this is. I see in the right corner it says biography. So I think that Jung-ha is a person, probably, and that this text is going to tell me about him. So my genre is nonfiction because a biography means that this person was real. So my genre is nonfiction, and my subject is Jung-ha. Alrighty, next step is to closely read, right? So when we closely read a biography, we need to make sure that we know who this person is, like, and what they did. Why is this author writing a biography about them? So, like, why are they important? So after I closely read, I should be able to answer all of those things. If I can't answer all of those questions, then that means I didn't closely read closely enough. Go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to closely read. Make sure that you can answer those 3 questions after you read it. Go ahead and pause. Alrighty, so after closely reading this text, I've learned a lot about Jung-ha, right? So Jung-ha when I'm answering these questions, my main idea is going to have to do something about Zheng He, who he was and why he was important, right? So I'm going to answer these 3 questions and then sort of merge them all together to actually jot my main idea, which is step number 3 in our plan of attack. So who was Zheng He? Here it says that he was a soldier and he also was a sailor, right? So Zheng He was a Chinese soldier and explorer in the early 1400s. All right, what did he do? Okay, so he was a soldier and a sailor. And over here it talked about how he went to different countries and traded with them, right? So he traveled a lot and traded. So he traveled the world trading Chinese goods for foreign goods, right? And it says, why was he important? So why was he important? Why did the author write about this? So in paragraph 3 also, it says that Zheng He took China out into the world and he brought the world back to China. So why was he important? He introduced China to people around the world and told people in China about the rest of the world. So notice how I marked up where I found my answers to these questions. This sort of just gives me, make sure that what I'm saying is backed up by the text, right? So I always need to go back to the text and make sure that what I'm saying is supported by the text. All right, so jotting my main idea, I'm going to put all those 3 questions together just to basically explain what this text is about. So Zheng He was a Chinese soldier and explorer in the early 1400s who, by traveling the world and trading Chinese goods for foreign goods, introduced China to people around the world and taught people in China about the rest of the world. Cool. In my main idea, I've been able to explain why the author wrote this text, what they're trying to say about this person, right? So just make sure that your main idea looks something like this when you are working on the text independently, as in you're answering those important questions about the text. All right, our focus is not the main idea today, though. We're focusing on inferencing. So we are going to take a look at this question. What inference can be drawn about how Zheng He affected the world's knowledge about China? Support your answer with quotes from the passage, right? Always support your answer with text evidence. So first we need to state our inference, but first we need to see what we actually read that could answer this question. So Zheng He, how did he affect the world's knowledge of China? So when we go back to the text, we see that it says that his fleet came to trade, not to conquer. So over here, paragraph 3, his fleet came to trade, not to conquer. That is an important part of the text. It sort of leads me to believe that he wasn't there to take lands from people. He was there to trade, but not just goods. Like, he was also there to trade knowledge, right? Knowledge about culture. So here it also says that Zheng He took China out into the world and he brought the world back to China, right? That was an important quote that we also used in our main idea, right? So how did he affect the world's knowledge of China? What I know is that when people trade, they interact with each other and they learn about one another. So I think that Zheng He affected the world's knowledge of China. He probably increased the world's knowledge about China, right? And that's my inference. But I need to make sure that I explain this with evidence, right? So, okay, I need to explain this with evidence. So I need to go back to the text and explain it in a way that's sort of concise and put together. So I'm going to go and find my evidence. So I talked about how his fleet came to trade, not to conquer, and he took China out into the world and he brought the world back to China. This is kind of what I'm saying. This is kind of overall what I said. So I'm not going to use this because although it supports it, it's not quite a fact, right? Here, his fleet came to trade, not to conquer. I think that's more going to support what I'm trying to say. So in paragraph 3, it says that Zheng He's fleet came to trade, not to conquer. That's what I see or what I read. People throughout Asia and Africa probably learned more about China through its goods. This supports what I said because I see that people in Asia and Africa learned about China through trading, and the trading is what it says in the text. And my inference is that he probably greatly increased the world's knowledge about China. So this is my inference, and I'm able to wrap it all together like that because I've supported it with my text evidence directly from the text, and I've even marked up where I got my text evidence. All right, y'all. So that's basically how you do it. So what I want you to do independently is to take a look at the text that is on page 46 from Treasures of the Tomb. I want you to preview that text, closely read the text, and jot your main idea. Obviously, that's how we always do things. Then you are going to answer questions 1 through 6 that are on page 49, 50, and 51. And I want you to post those questions on the Google quiz that's on Google Classroom, okay? So I know that this one's a little bit shorter of a lesson, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys enough time to practice doing it on your own, because with inferencing, it's really just a matter of practicing it till you get right, okay? So that's really all I have for you all today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Make sure you submit your work on Google Classroom, and I'll catch y'all next week.